Hello, everyone. My name is Community Director Anthony Palecchia, and today we are going to be discussing RA 102 COVID updates. I drew the short end of the stick, and I got the worst presentation to make. So please bear with me. These updates are important, and this is a microphone. I apologize. My computer's audio isn't great. And I wanted to make these presentations as easy to listen to as they can be. And I also get to pretend like I am a professional radio host. So without further ado, let us begin the presentation. So, RA 102, COVID updates. This presentation is going to go over a lot of information, and it's all very important. So I do ask that you please bear with me. By this time, many of you have received countless emails, attended several town halls that probably frustrated you, and likely also heard secondhand many different changes that will be happening on campus this semester. These changes include, but are not limited to, modifications to the physical campus, changes and adjustment to specific policies, as well as the student handbook, and restrictions on the usage of physical campus space and group meeting limits. As a result, it is imperative that the resident assistant role also needs to change in order to better serve the residents, but also ensure that our expectations of the resident assistant stays in line with reality. Changes to the RA role will include, but are not limited to, changes to duty, changes to incident response, changes to community development and programming. It is important that you all understand that these restrictions and modifications are not arbitrary and are not meant to be overly restrictive. These updates and modifications were made by following federal and local government guidelines and recommendations, and were required by the state in order to approve our reopening plans. These changes are being made so that we can do everything in our power to find the most effective way to both reopen our campus for the fall while helping to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. It's important that you guys understand that these are not things that we are doing to make the semester less fun. These are not things that we are doing to be too restrictive. These are requirements that oftentimes we are having to react to based on what the government is telling us. So the most important one, there's really no most important one. The most obvious one that you are going to notice immediately will be the changes to the physical campus. These include some policy changes. The first one that you are going to need to be familiar with is the limitations on guests. Residents will not be permitted to have guests in their room unless those guests are also residents of that specific residence hall. This limitation is not just restricted to rooms, but also the entire hall. For example, a student who lives in Bell Hall would not be allowed to even enter 886, just like a student who lives in Mayflower would not be permitted to enter State House. Residents of a specific room will each be allowed to have one guest in that room who is also a resident of that building. If the room is a double, each resident of that room may have one guest. If the room is a single, that resident may have one guest. For suites, the resident of that room must be present in order for their guests to be allowed. A 6-person suite can't have 6 additional guests if only one resident of that room is present. In addition to that, suites may only have a maximum occupancy of 8 residents, and those residents must be residents of that building. So just because you have a 6-person suite does not mean you can have 6 guests for 12 people. That is not allowed. There is not enough square footage in there for that, and that is based on government guidelines. We do not have any say in that. That is the rules. And as I mentioned, square footage, that plays on limits on group gatherings. Curry College is required to follow the group gathering limits based on Massachusetts limitations. These limits change based on the phase of reopening that the state is in. Currently, Massachusetts is in phase 3 of its reopening plan. That means groups are limited to 8 people per 1,000 square feet, though groups should not exceed 25 people within an enclosed space of any square footage. And 100 people is the maximum outdoor group gathering size. This limit, and I cannot stress this enough, this limit can and will change. And that will be communicated to you if and when it does. Please understand that this change, however, is not a scheduled one, and it depends on many variables defined by and communicated directly from the state. Curry has no say in increasing these limits. For the fall semester, all lounges and common area spaces within the residence halls will be offline. Students will be able to meet in public meeting spaces within the Student Center, Learning Commons, and the library. These spaces allow for optimal social distancing and concentrated efforts by building and grounds to ensure frequent cleaning schedules, which would be impossible if all residential lounges and meeting spaces remained operational. Where possible, we will be removing furniture from these spaces completely and securing lounge doors to prevent unauthorized gatherings. In building in areas where this is not possible, signage will be implemented. We are expecting RAs to enforce this strictly. Limits on facilities. Restrooms will have recommended occupancy limits to allow for effective social distancing. However, laundry rooms will have more strict limits and signage. For laundry room occupancy limits, they will be posted and students will be expected to start their loads and then leave the laundry room immediately thereafter, while using the automatic laundry monitoring app in the My Curry portal to retrieve their laundry or move it to the dryer as it is done to free up the machine for the next person. We have added tape markers outside of the laundry rooms so that students can queue in line while maintaining social distancing. For the fall semester, common area kitchens will also be offline, except in instances when a student has a dietary need approved, at which point they will be furnished a key for the kitchen. No room changes will occur for the first 4 weeks of the semester. The typical room freeze has been 2 weeks. However, the additional time is needed this fall to determine space availability, as well as confirm cleaning of empty spaces before a student moves rooms. These room changes will also not be inter-building, so a student will only be able to change rooms within the building which they were assigned at the start of the semester. Social distancing needs. At all times, students are expected to maintain social distancing guidelines and follow directional, wayfinding, and occupancy limit signage. Personal protective equipment. All students will be provided with masks and are required to wear them in public spaces, with exceptions for dining. This includes residence hall corridors, restrooms, laundry rooms, classrooms, and any other space on campus, not their specific room, while dining. As the campus changes and the college initiates restrictions, we understand that the resident assistant role will need to change in order to best suit the needs of the community. Duty will change in the following ways. The typical RA duty role is being heavily modified to allow for greater social distancing and fewer direct face-to-face interactions. RAs will remain present in the halls, but will be able to use adaptive means in order to satisfy the requirements of duty. They'll be able to perform duty from their rooms while also still maintaining rounds in staggered methods to let them maintain social distancing, but also a physical presence and visibility within the halls. Incident responses will also change for all COVID-19 related policy violations. A new reporting structure has been created and will be outlined in greater detail during future training sessions. Finally, community development and programming absolutely will need to change. There will be specific additional in-depth training on this, but just so you know, the community development model has changed significantly. There are modifications to allow for digital and virtual programming, and also modifications to specific areas such as spontaneous programs and bulletin boards, which cannot continue as previously employed. These modifications are being enacted to make sure that our expectations of your community development initiatives are in line with reality, with the understanding that for the very minimum, the fall is going to look very different from the semesters before it. We are counting on your creativity and your dedication to the role in order to make sure that our initiatives can be as successful, efficient, and safe as possible. This is the image of the specific COVID-19 incident reporting form. This will be able to be found very similarly under the RA portal on your My Curry portal, right where you would find the typical RA incident report form. It looks very similar, but it does have specific changes which are necessary for the proper tracking and reporting of these incidents. The updated community agreement, all students are required to agree to. This agreement outlines the additional expectations in place regarding face covering, social gatherings, physical distancing guidelines, policies within the residence halls, health monitoring and reporting, as well as conduct in online or virtual settings. Any and all COVID-related policies must be reported via this specific form. The community agreement states that all residents are required to sign the new community agreement. Nope, we're going to edit that. The community agreement emphasizes each student's commitment to actively protect the health and safety of every member of our campus. Students, whether on or off campus, are expected to abide by all federal, state, local, and Curry guidelines and regulations implemented to help mitigate the spread of COVID-19. Failure to do so may result in a violation of the student handbook and actions through the Office of Community Standards and Accountability. We are counting on resident assistants to maintain the same high level of incident response that they do throughout their role. The COVID-19 incident reporting form is meant to ensure that these policies are taken seriously. They are required of all students. I think I have enough in there. Going forward, there will be many changes, and this campus will continue to adjust as the COVID-19 pandemic continues. I do not have all the answers. I do not expect you to have all the answers. I do not know any single individual with all of the answers. That said, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, we are all here to make sure that you all have the tools necessary to do your jobs. So if you are unsure or confused or a policy doesn't quite make sense to you, do not hesitate to reach out to myself, your community director, Marshall Lancey, Jen Maitino. We are all here to make sure that you have what you need to do your jobs and be successful. As I mentioned, these changes will change, and it is going to be our responsibility to make sure that those changes to campus are successful and that we do everything in our power to prevent the spread of COVID-19 while remaining on campus and healthy. I thank you for your attention, and I hope that the rest of your training will be so much better than this very serious presentation. Thank you.